Bridge lights floated on the river like a second city. Aaron Cole stood at the railing, fingers numb on cold steel breath, a thin cloud in the December air. She could not hear the cars rolling across Hawthorne Bridge behind her, but she felt them in the small shiver of metal under her palms. On both banks, Portland shimmered with white bulbs along the waterfront and red and green squares of storefronts. Rain turned everything into soft streaks of light. She checked her phone. 7:02 p.m. Jason had picked the time and the restaurant. Jason with the easy grin in his profile picture and the line her sister had practically shouted over the phone. Always wanted to learn sign. The app had called him a 90-something% match. Her sister had called him a miracle. Aaron had called him Jason and typed slow, careful replies. Deaf since birth. I teach at a school for deaf kids. ASL is my first language. If you do not know sign yet, that is okay, but it matters if you want to try. He had replied, I watch ASL videos all the time. Maybe you can teach me in person. Her sister had read that over her shoulder and squeezed her arm. See, he gets it. Ben would want you to go, she had said. The name had landed in Aaron's chest and stayed there heavy and familiar. Now she slid the phone back into her pocket and walked across the bridge, boots tapping on the metal walkway. Wind pushed at her coat. She pulled her scarf higher and kept moving. On the far side, she cut through a block of galleries and boutiques, warm boxes of light behind glass. A woman pinned a dress to a mannequin. A kid spun in circles with tinsel around his shoulders. The restaurant sat on the corner, a brick box with wide windows fogged from the inside. A painted sign over the door read, Lumen. White lights traced the doorway. Through the glass, she saw tables packed close, heads bent together, hands lifting glasses, shoulders shaking with laughter she would never hear. She stood on the sidewalk long enough for her glasses to mist, wiped them on her scarf, and stepped inside. Heat and the smell of garlic and bread wrapped around her. When her lenses cleared, a host stood in front of her mouth, moving in a polished greeting. Aaron smiled, pointed to her ear, then to her phone. The flicker of surprise and understanding on the host's face was one she knew. Aaron opened her speech-to-text app and held it out. The host repeated herself, slower eyes on the screen. Welcome, do you have a reservation? Aaron typed Jason Reed, table for two. The host checked the tablet beside the stand, nodded, and gestured toward the dining room. He is not here yet. I will show you to the table. Of course he was not here yet. She had planned it that way, giving herself time to cross the bridge and talk herself out of turning back. Her table by the window held 2 menus, 2 water glasses, a white candle in the center. The flame made a small circle of light on the wood. Aaron slipped out of her coat and laid it over the back of the empty chair opposite her. She sat facing the room phone on the table screen up. The restaurant moved around her in steady loops of motion. A server laughed as she set down a plate. A group at the bar leaned toward one man at the center. Glasses trembled when someone set a dish down too hard. Once scenes like this had felt like being pressed up against glass she could not break. Tonight it just made her bones feel tired. A server with a messy knot of hair and a tiny fox tattoo behind one ear stopped at the table. Aaron read the shape of her lips. Hi, something to drink. She caught enough to guess. Aaron pointed to her ear, then to the phone. The server nodded quickly and repeated herself slower toward the microphone. Water, I will bring menus. The words appeared on the screen. Aaron nodded, spoke anyway. Water is good. Her own voice sounded distant, more memory than sound. The server returned with a pitcher and a quick smile. Aaron ordered a salad just to have something in front of her. With nothing on the table, the empty chair felt louder. She checked her phone. 7:14 p.m. No new messages. She scrolled up through Jason's texts as she waited. What is it like teaching at a deaf school? Do you read lips? Is it rude if I mess up sign? She had typed back, lips help, but they are not magic. It is okay to mess up. Trying matters more than perfect hands. He had sent a link to a video of someone signing a song, joked that he knew 3 signs, and was already ahead of his friends. She had smiled despite herself. It had been a long time since anyone new had wanted to step toward her world instead of away from it. The salad arrived. Greens glistened under the candlelight. Aaron moved leaves around the plate and forced a few bites down. Outside, rain softened to mist. Headlights turned the glass into stripes of white and red. A couple at a nearby table shared a dessert, the woman nudging the last bite toward the man. 7:32 p.m. Aaron typed a short message. Hey, I am at the table by the window. Hope you found the place. She added a small smiling face, then deleted it and hit send. The door opened and closed, bringing in people with damp coats and pink cheeks. Each time, Aaron's gaze flicked up and fell again when none of the faces matched the one she had memorized from the app. Her water glass emptied and filled. The server's glances picked up an extra edge of softness. Erin kept her shoulders square, hands folded loosely in her lap. 8:01 p.m. The vibration of her phone against the wood startled her. Relief rose before she could stop it. She grabbed the phone. One new message. Hey, I am going to be honest. I cannot make it tonight. And I realize this probably will not work anyway. The deaf thing is more than I am looking for right now. Take care. The words sat in a blue bubble, clean and final. The deaf thing. Erin read the phrase again slower. It folded her into a project, a problem, something heavy someone had decided not to carry. Heat pricked behind her eyes. She blinked. Candlelight blurred. Her hand closed around the cold water glass until her fingers ached. Around her plates clinked, mouths moved. Someone near the bar tossed their head back in laughter. The restaurant kept glowing as if nothing had shifted. At the little table by the window, Erin stared down at her phone until the letters blurred, then let it drop back to the wood. She watched her breath fog the glass beside her, a faint white mark that appeared and faded, and tried to pull air past the tight knot in her throat. The knot in her throat held. Erin reached for the napkin beside her plate and dabbed carefully at the corners of her eyes. The motion looked small and ordinary, the way someone might wipe away a stray drop of dressing. The napkin came away damp. She folded it in half, then in half again until it was a tight square under her fingers. Her phone buzzed once more. Another text from Jason. I am sorry. You seem great. It is just a lot. Communication and all that. I thought I was ready. Guess I am not. Her eyes skimmed the words. A tiny part of her noted that he had spelled a lot as one word. The rest of her did not find it funny. She locked the screen and flipped the phone face down. Fine. There. Solved. A server appeared at the edge of her vision, the one with the fox tattoo. Her mouth shaped a question, brows lifting gently. Everything all right? Erin could not hear the words, but she knew that pattern. Concern. Soft edges. She forced her mouth into a curve that felt like paper. She pointed to the check, then traced her fingers in the air. All good. Just the bill. The server hesitated for a fraction of a second, eyes flicking to the untouched salad, the empty chair. Then she nodded and slipped away. Erin let out a breath through her nose, slow and steady. Her chest felt tight, like her ribs were one size too small. The restaurant air seemed thicker. A group near the bar burst into another round of laughter, shoulders shaking. A man mimed a story with big gestures and wide eyes. Erin watched his hands move, not in any language she knew, just loose arcs and jabs. She swallowed. 3 years ago, she had sat across from Ben in a booth, not so different from this, watching his hands fly as he signed about training plans and new running routes. He had drawn routes on napkins, little loops of ink that circled parks and crossed bridges. He had promised to drag her out for one of his shorter runs when the weather warmed. She could still see his fingers. Eat something, he would sign, tapping the plate. You forget when you are reading. Her throat tightened further. She pushed the plate away. The server returned with a small black folder. Erin slid her card inside her fingers, only shaking a little, and handed it back. The server rested a hand on the table for a moment, a tiny anchor, then left again. Next to the window outside of Erin's awareness, a pair of small brown eyes watched her. In a corner booth near the back, Mia Walker pressed her chin to the table and stared. Her twin sister Lily poked at a French fry, more salt than potato at this point. On the other side of the booth, their dad tried to cut a burger in half, while their grandmother signed at him with a look that said he was doing it wrong. Mia was not paying attention to any of that. She had seen the blonde woman when they walked in, alone at the two-top by the window, pretty coat, blue scarf hair pulled back with a clip that caught the light when she moved. At first, Mia had thought she was waiting for someone. There had been an empty chair and extra menu. Grown-ups did that. They waited. Now the extra menu was gone. The chair was still empty. The woman blinked fast. Her shoulders were stiff, held a little too high. When the server set the check down, her fingers on the table tightened. Mia knew that look. It was the look Dad got in the garage sometimes when he thought no one could see him standing by the workbench, breathing too carefully. Lily followed her gaze. "What are you staring at?" she said out loud, words muffled around the fry. Mia shifted to ASL. Her hands moved under the table between them. Her, the lady by the window. She is sad. Lily glanced over her shoulder quick. She saw the woman dab at her eyes with a napkin. She saw the way the woman held her mouth like it hurt. "She looks tired," Lily signed back. "Maybe she got in trouble," Dad, Mia said, switching her voice on again and tugging his sleeve. Nate Walker looked up from the burger he was dissecting and the ketchup crisis on Lily's plate. "What is it, Bug?" he asked, then caught himself. He tilted his hands up, repeating the question in ASL for his mother, who watched every conversation the way some people watch television. Mia tipped her head toward the big window. That lady is crying. Nate followed her line of sight. From their booth, he could only see the back of the woman's head, and part of her profile reflected in the glass. A pale hand near her face. A napkin. Quieter shoulders now, but still tight. He looked back at Mia. Sometimes people have hard days, he signed, keeping his face calm. We give them space. But it is almost Christmas, Lily said, crumbs flaring off her fingers. Her ASL was still a little choppy, but her meaning was clear. You said Christmas is for together. I did, Nate agreed. He could feel his mother's eyes on him. Helen sat beside him, shoulders relaxed, hands resting on the table. She did not sign anything yet. She just watched his face. Nate turned slightly, getting a better angle. The candle on the woman's table flickered against the glass. Her plate was barely touched. Her hands moved when the server returned with the card, quick and economical. Thank you, the woman signed, brushing a polite smile over her mouth that vanished as soon as she looked down again. Nate felt something pinch in his chest. She is deaf, Lily signed, eyes wide now. Both girls straightened in their seats at the same time. They swung their legs against the booth. Fries rolled to the floor. Grandma, Mia signed across the table fast. She knows ASL. Helen's face lit. She leaned over Nate slightly, catching a glimpse of the woman just as she rose from her chair. The woman slipped into her coat. She pulled her scarf free, wrapped it around her neck with quick practiced motions. She stood for a moment by the table, one hand on the back of the empty chair, then let go and headed toward the entrance. For a heartbeat, the four walkers watched her move through the maze of tables. Nate saw more details now. The way she kept her eyes on the door, not on any face she passed. The way she held her jaw as if she were biting down on something. He did not know her. He knew that. Hundreds of people had sat at tables like that since Hannah died. He had not tried to walk into any of their stories. Still watching the woman thread past the bar, the weight of her coat pulled around her, he thought of the way his own reflection sometimes looked in the bathroom mirror after midnight when the girls were finally asleep. Worn out, held together by effort. Let her go, he told himself. People are allowed to be alone. You should say hi, Mia signed as if she had read his mind and rejected it completely. No, Nate replied. We do not walk up to strangers and ask why they are crying. That is not a thing. Lily's eyes narrowed. Her hands moved with more energy. But she is like Grandma. She signs. You always say we look out for our people. Helen's mouth twitched. She lifted her hands. We also respect when someone wants to leave, she signed. Her expression was gentle, not scolding. Sometimes, Mia, the kindest thing is to let them go where they need to go. Mia slumped back against the booth thinking. Her fingers picked at a loose thread on the seat. By the door, the woman reached for the handle. The host opened it first, letting in a draft of cold air and a little swirl of damp. The woman stepped through. The door closed behind her, shutting out the street. Mia pressed her cheek to the window. From this angle, she could see the sidewalk. The woman stood there just outside the glass, digging in her bag for keys. Her shoulders rose and fell, once a small tremor. Dad, Mia said again, voice soft. Nate picked up a napkin and started wiping ketchup off the table. He tried to focus on the stain. It is not our business, he said, speaking and signing at once. Mia did not answer. He looked up in time to see the twin expressions settle onto both his daughters' faces. It was the look they got when they had decided something together somewhere behind their eyes without words. Their playground face. Mia slid to the edge of the booth. Lily followed, climbing over the seat instead of under. Their sneakers thudded softly when they hit the floor. Girls, Nate said, warning in his tone as he reached for them. They slipped out of reach like water curly heads already bobbing through the tables toward the front of the restaurant. Outside, the night felt colder than it had on the bridge. Erin stepped away from the restaurant door, the warm light on her back fading as it swung shut. Street lamps washed the sidewalk in a thin yellow glow. Rain had turned to a mist that clung to her cheeks and hair, dampening the loose strands that had escaped her clip. She fumbled in her bag for her keys, fingers brushing her phone, her wallet, the small bottle of hand lotion she always forgot she owned. Her breath came out in short, visible bursts. The hum of traffic on the nearby street did not reach her. The world felt quiet and far away. Her hand closed on the keyring, metal pressed into her palm. The urge to sit down right there on the curb hit so suddenly she almost did. Instead, she squared her shoulders, drew in one long breath that hurt on the way in, and took a step toward the corner. A small tug at her coat stopped her. She looked down. Two little girls stood very close, side by side, like they had poured themselves into the same space, and then split at the last second. They had the same wild curls, the same big brown eyes. One wore a red sweater with a crooked reindeer on the front, the other a green one with a tree made of sequins. Both had cheeks pink from restaurant heat and the quick dash through the room. The girl in red lifted her hands. "Can we talk to you?" She signed, each movement careful and a little slow, like she was pulling vocabulary forward from school. Aaron stared for a heartbeat. The air around them seemed to sharpen. Then she nodded. The girl in green smiled in relief and signed, "You looked sad." The signs were clear, if not perfectly formed. Aaron saw her own hands answer before she fully thought the words. "I had a bad night," she replied, "but I am all right." The lie tasted thin and familiar. The girl in red shook her head with the absolute confidence of someone who had only known the world for 5 years. "You are crying," she said. "That is not all right." Aaron blinked. One of the girls reached up with a mittened hand and offered her a crumpled napkin from somewhere in her pocket. It smelled faintly of ketchup. Aaron took it anyway, her lips curved almost against her will. "Thank you," she signed. She tilted her head, studying them. "You know sign very well." The girl in green puffed up a little at that. "Our grandma is deaf," she signed quickly. "We sign with her at home. I am Lily. This is Mia." Mia gave a small wave in addition to the sign. Both pairs of eyes stayed fastened on Aaron's face, waiting. Aaron shifted her bag on her shoulder. "I am Aaron," she said aloud, letting the name form with her mouth and hands at once. She signed it too, tracing the shape of the E near her shoulder. Lily tried the name sign, copying her. It came out a little crooked. Aaron smiled for real this time, and repeated it slower until Lily got it right and grinned. "Why are you sad?" Mia asked. Her hands softened the question, but her gaze did not. Aaron glanced back at the windows of the restaurant. Blurred faces moved behind the glass. Her candle still flickered on the table by the window, its light small against the rest. "Someone was supposed to meet me for dinner," she signed. He changed his mind. The girls frowned in tandem. "That is mean," Lily said, her fingers stabbing at the air. "Very mean," Mia added, arms folding. A gust of misty wind brushed against them. Aaron's scarf fluttered against her chin. A voice spoke just behind her, slightly breathless. "Girls." Aaron turned. A man approached from the doorway, weaving through the last few diners coming or going. He had a napkin still clutched in one hand, like he had forgotten he was holding it. His hair was dark and a little rumpled, as if someone had run a hand through it. When he saw Aaron's face, he slowed. Up close, she saw the resemblance. The same brown eyes as the girl's, just deeper set. The same curl at the edge of the hair, though his was tamed by habit and weather. He said something, mouth moving fast. Aaron's brain caught none of it. She watched his lips caught, maybe one shape too. It was enough to know he was apologizing. She pointed to her ear, then to her eyes, then lifted one hand, palm open. "Wait." He stopped. Her other hand went to the phone in her bag, reflex already forming, but then his hands came up, palms forward, fingers moving. "Sorry," he signed, this time with his hands instead of his mouth. "They just took off. I tried to stop them." His signing was smooth and easy, the kind that did not come from a class taken as a hobby. Aaron's shoulders dropped a fraction of an inch. "It is all right," she answered. "They were just being kind." Lily turned to him. "She got stood up," Lily announced in spoken English, then repeated in signs, slower. "That means someone was supposed to come, but did not." Mia nodded solemnly, as if providing expert commentary. Nate's jaw tightened for a brief moment. He exhaled, then forced his face back to neutral and signed to Aaron. "I am Nate. These are my daughters, Mia and Lily. They do not always understand personal space." "We do," Mia protested. "We just do not believe in it." Aaron let out a soft sound that was almost a laugh. "Nice to meet you," she signed. Nate shifted his weight, the napkin still in his hand, slowly dissolving under his grip. He seemed to realize and stuffed it into his pocket, wiping his palm on his jeans. "We saw you signing in there," he said, hands moving in time with the words. "My mom is deaf. The girls grew up with ASL. They wanted to say hi. I told them to let you have privacy." "Then why did we come out?" Mia asked, eyebrows lifting at him. "Because you never listen," he said this time, only with his hands, a small smile edging into place. Lily tugged on his sleeve. "She should not be alone," Lily signed, glancing up at Aaron with that blunt, honest gaze again. "It is Christmas time." "Almost," Mia corrected. "Still counts." Nate looked from one girl to the other, then back to Aaron. "You do not have to answer that," he signed. "They have opinions about holidays." Aaron's throat clenched again, but not for the same reason as before. She looked at the two small faces, the man who had obviously run after them the moment they slid out of their booth, the faint glow of the restaurant behind them, and the empty stretch of sidewalk ahead. "I was just gonna go home," she signed. "Eat cereal, grade papers." "Do you want to?" Mia asked. Her hands shaped the question slowly. "Want." Aaron hesitated. The answer hovered somewhere between yes and no. Yes, in the sense of safety of retreat. No, in the sense of spending the rest of the night alone with her phone and the shadow of one stupid sentence. Nate watched her. His expression was careful, the way people sometimes looked when they were trying not to step on something fragile. My mom is inside with our food, he signed after a moment. We have way too many fries and the girls ordered dessert with their eyes instead of their stomachs. If you wanted to sit with us for a bit, it would make their night. He tilted his head toward Mia and Lily. Both girls nodded hard enough that their curls bounced. Please, Mia added, hands pressed together. Aaron glanced over Nate's shoulder at the door. The host peered out once saw them and quickly pretended not to. Inside, the candle on her table near the window burned lower. She thought of Ben drawing routes on napkins of the empty chair across from her earlier, of Jason's words sitting on her screen like a closed door. She also thought of the way the girls' hands moved, sure and bright, the way they had stepped out into the cold mist just because they had seen her cry. She let out a quiet breath. Are you sure, she asked? I do not want to crash your dinner. Nate shook his head. You would not be crashing, he signed. You would be saving me. It is two of them. One of me, and they outnumbered me before we even added sugar. Lily gasped. He is lying, she signed to Aaron. We are perfect. Mia nodded with mock seriousness. We will be very normal, she promised. That is the scariest thing you have said all night, Nate muttered, then caught himself and repeated a cleaned-up version in sign. They will try. Aaron's smile came easier now. All right, she signed, just for a bit. Mia grabbed her hand without asking, small fingers warm against her cold ones. Lily took the other side. Nate opened the door for all three of them. Heat and light folded around Aaron again as she stepped back into the restaurant between the two girls, their hands swinging with hers in an uneven rhythm. From their booth, Helen looked up. Her eyes moved from her son to the stranger walking beside her granddaughters. She saw the way the stranger's shoulders sat slightly lower than they had when she had passed the window earlier. She saw their joined hands. Helen's mouth curved. She lifted her hands ready to sign hello. The noise wrapped around them in a soft blur as they crossed the room. Aaron felt two small hands swing from hers, one on each side, like she had been picked up mid-step and dropped into someone else's evening. Mia led the way with the confidence of someone sure every space would make room for her. Lily hopped once on each tile as if the floor was a game board. Nate walked slightly behind, one hand on the back of Aaron's chair as he slid it out for her when they reached the booth. The corner table was smaller than she expected. One side backed against the wall, the other open toward the rest of the restaurant. Plates were already on the table, fries half-eaten, burgers cut in pieces. A dish of carrots and broccoli sat untouched, a small island of bright color. An older woman sat at the end next to the wall. Her hair was silver pulled into a loose twist, her face lined in the way of someone who laughed often. Her eyes took everything in at once, quick and alert, before settling on Aaron. Helen, Nate signed as the girls scrambled back into the booth. My mother. Helen had already lifted her hands. Nice to meet you, she signed, expression open. Thank you for bringing my granddaughters back before they tried to adopt you. Aaron slid into the seat opposite her, a little self-conscious. Mia landed next to her close enough that their shoulders touched. Lily squeezed in on the other side of Nate. I think they were the ones rescuing me, Aaron replied, fingers moving before she could edit the thought. Helen's smile deepened, small lines fanning from the corners of her eyes. That sounds like them, she answered. A server appeared with 2 chocolate sundaes piled high with whipped cream and bright red cherries. She blinked at Aaron at the expanded party, then recovered with a practiced smile. Guest joining you, she said aloud, then repeated into Aaron's phone when she saw it on the table. Nate nodded. If that is all right, he signed. We kind of stole her. Aaron lifted a hand. No, I invited myself, she said. Then she glanced at the server and added in slow, clear speech, could I just get a tea, please? The server nodded, repeating the word for the phone, and vanished again. Mia pushed a spoon toward Aaron. You should have some, she said, signing as she talked. We cannot finish both. Lily scooped a large bite of her own sundae to prove her wrong. You cannot finish both, Mia corrected. I can. The whipped cream smeared on her upper lip as she spoke, giving her an accidental white mustache. Aaron bit down on a laugh, then gave up and let it out. Nate watched the sound, the way it changed her face, her eyes. His shoulders loosened a little. So you teach, he signed, leaning his forearms on the table. The girls always steal my questions. Aaron nodded. At Riverside School for the Deaf, she replied. 3rd grade, a lot of energy, a lot of questions, not enough glue sticks. Mia perked up. 3rd grade, she repeated. That is like big kids. You are 5, Lily said around a mouthful of ice cream. You still cry when you cannot find your stuffed panda. I do not cry, Mia said, offended. My eyes get wet. There is a difference, Helen signed deadpan. Very important. Erin laughed again, the sound smaller this time, but easier. She let herself look around the table. The girls had clearly been in mid-dinner chaos when she arrived. A broken crayon rolled near Nate's elbow. One of Mia's braids had a fry stuck in it. Helen's napkin was folded into a shape that looked suspiciously like a bird. Erin's own table by the window still sat in the corner of her vision candle, nearly burned down salad plate pushed aside. It looked like a memory that had not finished cooling. She turned back. "You grew up with ASL, she asked Nate. "Since before I remember," he said. "My mom taught me before I could really talk. We had a rule. If you lived in the house, you learned the language of the house." He signed it as he spoke, hands moving easily. His fingers had that same mix of speed and clarity she saw in Helen. Mia nodded vigorously. "Grandma says words are cheaper when they belong to everyone," she added. Helen shrugged, unbothered. "Close enough," she replied. The tea arrived, steam curling from the mug. Erin wrapped her hands around it, grateful for the heat. Her fingers were still cold from the sidewalk. The girls attacked their sundaes with the focus of small children presented with sugar. For a few minutes, conversation shrank to napkins and drips. Nate used the lull. "Do you like it?" he asked. "Teaching." Erin watched the steam rise. She thought of small hands signing under desks of vocabulary lists turned into games of the way some kids arrived with their shoulders already hunched, then slowly straightened, as they found other kids who moved their hands the same way. "I love it," she said simply. "They are loud in a way people do not expect, if that makes sense." Nate nodded, expression soft. "It does." Outside of his family and the small deaf community he knew through his mother, not many people understood that kind of volume. "The way their faces are when they sign," Erin added. "You can see everything. It is tiring sometimes, but honest." She let the cup warm her palms and did not say out loud that the classroom was also the place where she did not have to explain herself first, where she did not have to label deaf thing before anyone else did. "What about you?" she asked. The girls mentioned bridges. Nate smiled in spite of himself. "I am a structural engineer," he said. "I design bridges and some buildings. Lately, more bridges. The city keeps asking for ways to make things feel connected." He gestured loosely toward the window where the glow from the riverside could just be seen. Erin studied him, then signed, "You like that." It was not really a question. His smile shifted more serious at the edges. "I do," he admitted. "There is something about taking two places that seem separate and giving them a way to reach each other." Mia rolled her spoon between her fingers. "He meant to say he is a bridge nerd," she told Erin. Lily nodded solemnly. "He looks at bridges on vacation." "You are selling me out," Nate said. "You sell yourself out?" Helen replied. "Remember the time you stopped traffic to take pictures of that old iron bridge?" "That was an accident," Nate protested. "You parked," Helen signed, "on purpose." Erin watched their hands, the quick rhythm of it. It felt like sitting inside a language she had always known, but in a pattern she had not had in a long time. Family. Ease. Even their teasing moved in sign. She took a sip of tea and let it settle in her chest. "So," Helen signed, turning her attention back. "Do you have family in the city?" "My sister," Erin replied. "She is across town. My parents are out in the suburbs. They are probably arguing about which Christmas cookies to burn this year." The words came out lighter than she felt them. In her mind, she saw her mother's kitchen, the mixing bowl, the batter spooned in too thick, the blackened bottoms of cookies that still got eaten anyway. She saw Ben at the counter stealing dough before it hit the tray. She set the cup down before her grip could give her away. "You are close?" Helen asked. Erin nodded. "Yes. My parents learned ASL before I was even diagnosed. They got there before the doctors did." She smiled at the memory. "When I got to school, I was the kid who already knew how to argue in two languages." Nate raised his brows. "That sounds useful." "It was," Erin said. She hesitated, then added, "It still is, just not always enough for some people." She did not have to explain which people. The phrase from the text sat between them, unspoken but present like another chair at the table. The deaf thing. Nate's jaw flexed once, then eased. The person who did not show up tonight, he signed. He did not even try. It was a statement, not a question. Erin lifted one shoulder. "He tried enough to send a message," she replied. "That is something, I guess." In another life, she might have kept that to herself. Tonight, with their hands moving around her and the girls pressed in close, it felt less like a confession and more like answering the last question on a test she had not studied for. "That is nothing," Lily said bluntly. "Very nothing," Mia agreed. Nate gave them both a look. "You two do not get to decide every adult is bad," he said. "We do not," Mia said. "Just that one." She leaned against Erin, sticky fingers braced on Erin's sleeve. You know, she continued, Grandma is making cookies tomorrow. Christmas cookies. Too many. You should come help. Lily nodded so hard her curls bounced. Yes. We cannot eat them all. Well, we can try, but Dad will say no, and Grandma will say yes, and then he will make his tired face. She scrunched her features into a perfect imitation of Nate's end-of-the-day expression. Helen covered her mouth with her hand to hide a smile. Mia looked up at Aaron again. Come, she said, signing the word with care. Aaron blinked. Tomorrow, she repeated. The word felt strange in the air around them. I should not invite myself. You are not, Helen said. My granddaughters are inviting you. That is a very different thing. Nate cleared his throat. It is a bit of a circus at our place, he said, signing along. My mom takes cookies too seriously. The girls take sprinkles too seriously. You do not have to say yes just to be polite. Aaron glanced down at the streak of melted ice cream on her sleeve where Mia's hand had rested, at the twin sundaes reduced to puddles, at the plate of untouched vegetables. Her teacher brain, always on duty, twitched at the sight of the carrots. What is the story with those, she asked, nodding at the plate. Mia grimaced. They are carrots, she said, as if that explained everything. And broccoli, Lily added, as if naming it made it worse. Nate blew out a breath. We have tried reasoning. We have tried sticker charts. I pretended they were tiny trees once. It did not end well. Erin reached for a carrot stick. She held it between her thumb and forefinger, studying it. Did you know, she said, switching to a conspiratorial tone, that carrots help your eyes see in the dark? Mia eyed her. No, they help rabbits, she countered. Exactly, Erin said. And who do you think sees Santa first? Rabbits. Because of carrots. If you eat enough, you can check on the presents in the dark without turning on any lights. No grown-ups will wake up. Lily's eyes widened. For real, she whispered. Erin nodded gravely. That is just science. Helen snorted softly into her napkin. Mia looked at the carrot on the plate, then at Erin. She reached out slowly, picked it up, and took a bite. Lily followed, grabbing a broccoli floret with visible suspicion. Nate stared at Erin. I have been negotiating vegetable treaties for 20 minutes, he said. You come in, and in 30 seconds they are eating like rabbits. Secret teacher magic, Erin replied, tapping 2 fingers against her temple. Mia chewed thoughtfully. If you come tomorrow, she said, little bits of carrot stuck to her teeth, you can bring more magic. Lily nodded. And we can make your own cookies, with stars, and no broccoli. Erin felt something loosen inside her. She looked at Nate, at Helen, at the girls pressed against her side, at the crumbs and smudges, and the way the light from the candle caught on the silver in Helen's hair. She lifted her hands. If you are sure, she said, I can come for a little while. Mia shrieked the sound too loud for the small space. Lily clapped. Helen smiled, satisfied, as if something had just clicked into place. Nate tore a corner off a clean napkin and pulled a pen from his pocket. His handwriting came out neat and precise, as he wrote an address and a time. He slid the napkin across the table. We live near St. John's Bridge, he signed. Around 2, but really only if you want to. Erin picked up the napkin. The ink had bled slightly into the fibers, turning the letters soft at the edges. I want to, she said. Snow never really stuck in Portland, but the air had that bright, thin chill that made breath visible and noses sting. Erin stood on the sidewalk in front of the Walker's house and stared up at the string of white lights that framed the roof. They flashed slowly in a pattern one side, then the other, like they were taking turns. A plastic deer leaned at an odd angle in the yard, one antler slightly bent. Someone had wrapped a strand of red ribbon around the front porch railing. On the small front lawn, a metal wind chime hung from a hook. It moved in the light breeze, spinning lazily. Erin could not hear it, but she watched the tubes knock against each other, the thin wires tremble. She checked the address on the napkin again. The numbers on the house matched the ink. She folded the napkin and slipped it back into her pocket, then shifted the bag in her other hand. She had brought cookie cutters from her own kitchen, the metal warm by the heat of her apartment, when she packed them, now cooling in the December air. Stars, trees, a crooked snowman that had been her favorite as a kid. Through the front window she could see movement. A small shape darted past and disappeared. Something thumped against a wall. A blur of curls flashed behind the curtains. Her mouth lifted. She raised her hand to knock just as the door flew open. You are here, Mia and Lily shouted at the same time. They spoke and signed together, the word bouncing between them. Mia launched herself at Erin's waist. Lily wrapped her arms around Erin's hips from the other side. Erin staggered one step and caught her balance, laughing. Of course I am here, she signed, balancing the bag. I promised. You could still have broken your promise, Mia said. People do that. We checked the clock every 5 minutes, Lily added. Their hands moved so fast that the signs bumped into each other. Erin smiled at the rush of it. "Inside, girls," a voice called from deeper in the house. Nate appeared behind them in the doorway. Flour dusted his dark hair and his t-shirt. A streak of something white crossed his jaw where he had scratched an itch and forgotten his hands were covered. He took in the scene, Aaron half buried in his daughter's bag, tilting. "Come in," he said, signing with his wrist against his chest, because both his palms were coated in dough. "Welcome to the Walker disaster zone." Mia pulled at Aaron's sleeve. "Cookies," she said. "We started without you." "Only a little," Lily added. Nate stepped back to let Aaron in. The warmth hit first, then the smells. Cinnamon, sugar, vanilla. Something savory from farther back in the house. The entryway opened onto a living room that had clearly lost a battle with childhood. A Lego castle sat half-finished on the coffee table, tiny plastic men frozen mid-siege. A line of stuffed animals marched along the back of the couch. A blanket fort drooped over 2 dining chairs. On the far wall, a Christmas tree stood slightly crooked in its stand, covered in mismatched ornaments. Most of the decorations clustered about 3 feet up from the floor. The top third of the tree looked bare, branches sticking out like they were waiting their turn. Art filled the spaces between framed photos. Handprints in paint, a row of construction paper turkeys, a drawing of what might have been a bridge or might have been a dragon. Aaron felt her chest go loose for a second, like something in her had been holding its breath and only now realized it could stop. "Your house is beautiful," she said before she could think better of it. Nate snorted. "It is a mess," he replied. "Lived in," she corrected. He tilted his head, considering, then nodded. "That too." Mia tugged at Aaron again. "Grandma is in the kitchen," she said. "She keeps saying, 'Where is Aaron? Where is Aaron?' like that." "I did not say it like that." Helen's voice floated from around the corner, not loud but clear enough. Mia grinned and dragged Aaron down the hall. The kitchen was bright light bouncing off white cabinets and stainless steel. The counters were already covered, bowls, bags of flour, and sugar sticks of butter softening on a plate. Cookie sheets lined up like a small army. Dough flattened in discs ready to be rolled. Helen stood at the island, sleeves rolled up to her elbows. There was flour on her nose and on the front of her navy sweater. She looked up as they entered and her face broke into a smile. "You came," she signed. "Good. We needed backup." Aaron lifted the bag. "I brought reinforcements," she said. "Stars and trees. Possibly one snowman with issues." Mia reached for the bag with both hands. "Issues are the best kind," she declared. Lily had already climbed onto a stool, hands extended toward the nearest ball of dough. "Not yet," Helen said, tapping her wrist. "Hands." Both girls sighed in unison and shuffled to the sink. "Wash, wash, wash," Mia muttered, but she turned on the water. Aaron stepped up beside Helen at the island. "What can I do?" she asked. Helen handed her a rolling pin. "Roll," she signed. "Talk. Keep me from strangling my son when he tries to put nutmeg in everything." "That did not happen," Nate said from the doorway. He leaned against the frame, arms folded, watching the 3 of them with open amusement. "You tried," Helen replied. He lifted his hands in surrender and went to clear a space at the table, stacking mail and a plastic dinosaur in a pile on the sideboard. Aaron dusted the counter with flour. She pressed the rolling pin into the dough, the resistance soft and cool under her palms. The motion was familiar. Her mother had taught her the same way, her own hands over Aaron's smaller ones guiding. "Do you bake often?" Helen asked, eyes on Aaron's hands. "At my parents' house," Aaron said. "They pretend they are bad at it, so I will take over. I think it is a trick." "Smart parents," Helen said. Grandma Mia called from the sink, flicking water at Lily. "Tell Aaron about the rule." "Which rule?" Helen asked, though her eyes already had that glint that meant she knew. "The house rule," Lily said, rinsing soap from her fingers. "About language." "Ah, that one," Helen replied. She turned to Aaron, hands moving. "When I was little, my parents never learned to sign," she said. "They thought I should learn to speak and read lips so I could live in the hearing world." She shrugged, a small lift of one shoulder. It was a different time, different ideas. They tried their best. It was very quiet, though, in all the wrong ways. Aaron nodded, the pin pausing for a beat. "I did not learn real sign until I was a teenager," Helen continued. "When I did, suddenly, everything had color. So, I promised myself if I ever had a home, if anyone lived in that home, they would have my language." She flicked a bit of flour off the edge of the dough. "So, with Nate, I started signing to him the day he was born. They tried to tell me not to, that it would confuse him." She smiled. "They were very wrong." Nate snorted softly without looking up. He watched the girls at the sink, their hair tied back with mismatched elastics, making more of a splash than strictly necessary. "And with these two," Helen went on, "I did not even have to argue. Nate knew." She nodded toward her son. "I am bossy, but I learn who to be bossy with." Aaron rolled the dough into a flat sheet, the pin pushing away and back away and back. "I was lucky," Aaron said. My parents learned sign before I did. Some doctor noticed something, sent them to a specialist, and while they waited for tests, my mom checked out every book on ASL from the library. My dad watched old VHS tapes with an interpreter. By the time they got the official word, we already had our own messy version of language. Her throat tightened, but it was a different kind of tightness now. There are still people who do not want to learn, though, she added. Outside of family, they hear deaf and they think work or burden or project. Her hands hesitated over the dough. They are wrong, but sometimes it is hard not to notice. Helen's eyes softened. You notice because you pay attention, she said. That is not a flaw. Aaron exhaled. Mia and Lily pattered back, drying their hands on a towel. Look, Aaron said. Grateful for the timing. Dough is ready. She slid the sheet closer to the edge of the island. Mia reached for a star cutter, Lily for a tree. They pressed the metal into the dough with serious focus. You have to leave space, Aaron reminded them gently, or they will grow into one big cookie. That sounds amazing, Mia said. Less amazing to bake, Helen replied. She transferred cut shapes to a lined tray, moving with the efficiency of long practice. As they worked, conversation settled into an easy rhythm. The girls narrated every step like a cooking show, switching from speech to sign and back again without thinking. Nate fetched more trays, pretended to be in charge, and was ignored. Aaron moved between them, filling gaps, catching sliding cutters, smoothing rough edges. At one point, Lily tried to sign and hold a gingerbread man at the same time. Dough stuck to her fingers, stretching between her hand and the counter like glue. Help, she said, laughing. Aaron took her wrist gently and peeled the sticky strip away. Hands, she said. They get into everything. Mia held up her own flour-coated palms, fingers spread. Grandma says our hands are big mouths, she announced. Smart Grandma, Aaron said. Helen pretended not to preen. Cookies went into the oven trays, rotating in and out. The house grew warmer, the air thick with sugar and spice. Someone turned on a string of lights under the cabinets. Tiny bulbs glowed against the backsplash reflections, catching in the stainless steel. When the first batch cooled enough to handle, the girls descended with bowls of icing and sprinkles. Aaron found herself between them at the table, each child with a cluster of cookies and a brush. You have to make at least one for yourself, Mia said. It is a rule. Lily nodded. And one for somebody else. Aaron dipped her brush into blue icing. Her fingers moved almost on their own, drawing lines and curves over a star. When she finished, the cookie carried something that looked vaguely like a bridge, two towers connected by a sweeping arc. She looked at it for a long moment. For you, she said, sliding it toward Nate. He blinked. Is this a bridge cookie? He asked. Maybe, she replied. He picked it up carefully, as if it might break under the weight of the meaning she was not willing to say out loud yet. Later, after too much frosting and several apologies to the floor, Helen wiped the table clean and pulled a photo album from a cabinet. You should see the girls when they were smaller, she told Aaron. They were chaos even then. Mia groaned. Grandma, no. Yes, Helen said. It is tradition. They moved to the couch, Aaron in the middle, girls tucked under her arms, Helen at one end, Nate at the other. The album opened with baby pictures. Two tiny infants in matching onesies. Nate, younger hair, longer eyes, tired but bright. Helen in the background, always catching some corner of the frame. Aaron smiled at each turn of the plastic sheet. They were so small, she said. Too small, Nate said. They grew fast. A few pages and a new face appeared. A woman with dark hair and warm eyes holding both babies at once. Her smile took up half the frame. Aaron's fingers paused on the edge of the page. That is their mom, Nate said quietly. Hannah. Mia leaned forward. She is pretty, Aaron said, and meant it. She was, Helen replied. She signed it in present tense, then corrected herself with a small twitch of her fingers. The next photo showed Hannah and Nate together, on a bridge, the twins in a stroller between them. The wind had blown Hannah's hair across her face. Nate laughed, eyes crinkled. We took that on, St. John's, Nate said. He tapped the edge of the picture. Hannah hated the height, but loved the view. What happened? Aaron asked softly. The girl's eyes flicked to Nate, listening. He took a breath. There was an accident at a site, he said. An elevator failure. She was there for a meeting. It dropped a few floors. He rolled his shoulders as if he could shake the memory off. She did not come home. The words sat in the space between them, simple and heavy. Mia pressed closer under Aaron's arm. Grandma moved in after Lily said, voice thin but steady. So we could still have stories and cookies and someone who knows all the words. Aaron's hand found Mia's shoulder, resting there for a beat. I am glad you have each other, she said. Helen's eyes flicked to Aaron's face, reading something there. Her hands moved. And you, she asked. You said earlier teaching is one of the places you feel most yourself. What about the rest of your life? Erin stared at a picture of Hannah holding a birthday cake, candles blurred. I was engaged, she said. Once. His name was Ben. She picked at a loose thread on the cushion. He was healthy. He ran marathons. One day he had a heart issue at work. That was it. She lifted one shoulder. We had a list of things we were going to do, she said. Trips, silly plans, everything. After I did not want to make lists anymore. The room felt quiet in a way Erin knew even without sound. Not empty, just still. Lily leaned her head against Erin's arm. Do you still think about him? Lily asked. Every day, Erin answered. Not always the sad parts. Sometimes just the way he held a pen or how he hated olives. Ben would have liked this, she thought. The messy living room and the kids and the cookies and the woman who decided early that no one in her house would sit alone in silence. Mia lifted her hand, fingers brushing Erin's wrist. You can have more than one story, she said. That is what Grandma says. Sometimes, Helen added, you do not even know you are in a new one until you look up and see where you are sitting. They sat there a little longer, flipping through pages, pointing at baby faces and bad haircuts, letting old stories and new ones braid together. When Erin finally stood to go, the sky outside the window had shifted to deep blue. The tree lights blinked in the reflection. Her coat felt heavier over her arm than it had when she arrived, but in a way that did not bother her. At the door, Mia clung to her. You have to come for Christmas, Mia said. Not just cookies, morning too. Lily nodded, curls bouncing. Grandma is making cinnamon rolls, she said. Only special people get those. Erin looked at Nate. He met her eyes, expression open, a little unsure. We would like that he signed. Erin found herself nodding before her mind could come up with a reason not to. All right, she said, Christmas morning. The twins cheered. Helen smiled from the hall. Nate opened the door. Cold air reached in, catching the scent of sugar and cinnamon on Erin's clothes as she stepped outside. She pulled her scarf tighter around her neck and glanced back through the window once before heading down the walk, watching the movement of hands inside, bright against the glow of the kitchen light. Christmas morning smelled like cinnamon and orange peel. Erin stood on the walker's front step with a carton of juice in one hand and a small paper bag of gifts in the other. Her breath puffed out in pale clouds. The street was quiet, houses lined with sagging strings of lights, a few plastic Santas listing in front yards. She glanced at her phone. 9:06. Inside, through the living room window, she saw movement. Two small figures bounced up and down in front of what looked like a kitchen timer on the coffee table. Their mouths moved in loud, excited shapes. Helen sat in an armchair, watching with an amused tilt to her head. Nate stood near the tree, rubbing the back of his neck, looking like he had been up for hours already. At 9:07 on the dot, Erin pressed the doorbell. The chime rang faintly inside. She did not hear it, but she saw the girls freeze, glance at each other, then shriek. She heard that in a way. The glass vibrated slightly in its frame. The door flew open. Perfect timing, Nate said, both in voice and with his hands. He was wearing a faded green t-shirt and flannel pants, a dusting of flour still clinging to his forearm. His hair stuck up on one side. Merry Christmas, Erin signed, smile already tugging at her mouth. Merry Christmas, he replied. Mia and Lily crowded the doorway around him, tugging at Erin's coat, her bag, anything they could grab. You made it, Mia said. We almost exploded. We counted down 20 times, Lily added. Grandma said the timer did not work like that. Helen appeared in the hall, behind them, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She wore a red sweater and earrings shaped like tiny silver bells. Welcome, she signed. Come in before they drag you inside themselves. Erin stepped over the threshold, shrugging out of her coat as she went. Warmth and light wrapped around her. The tree in the corner glowed with multicolored bulbs. Wrapping paper already littered the floor near a couch, evidence of an early round of gifts. I brought juice, Erin said, holding up the carton. Helen laughed. We have enough juice to survive an apocalypse, she said. The girls had a phase. More is fine, Nate added. Cinnamon rolls are in the oven. If we have a sugar crash later, it is my fault. Mia pointed to the paper bag. What is that? She asked, eyes gleaming. Presents, Erin replied. Small ones. The girls bounced in place. Presents now, Lily demanded. Breakfast, Helen countered. Her hands were firm, but her eyes were kind. Then presents. The cinnamon rolls are almost ready. The timer on the stove beeped. Helen nodded toward the kitchen. See, she signed. Rescue. Nate disappeared to pull the pan from the oven. The smell that drifted out made Erin's stomach tighten in a way that had nothing to do with nerves. She followed the girls into the living room and set the bag on the coffee table, then hesitated. This is very much your family morning, she said, signing as she spoke. Are you sure I'm not in the way? Mia shook her head so hard her curls flapped. You are part of today now, she said. Lily nodded. We wrote it on the schedule. Erin looked at the whiteboard propped against the wall. It was divided into boxes, each with a time and a simple drawing. Wake up, cinnamon rolls, presents, fort, movie. The 907 box had a stick figure with wavy hair labeled Erin. Her eyes prickled. You put me on the schedule, she said. Obviously, Mia replied. Helen watched from the doorway. She caught Erin's eye and signed, They do not invite everyone onto the schedule. You are stuck with us. Erin smiled and let herself sink onto the couch. Breakfast was messy and perfect. The cinnamon rolls were enormous, spiraled with cinnamon and sugar glazed just enough. The girls licked the icing from their fingers. Nate burned his tongue on the first bite and pretended he had not. Helen insisted Erin take a second roll and then pretended she had not insisted. When the last crumbs were gone, Mia slapped her hands together. Now presents, she said. Grandma, can we do presents? Presents, Helen agreed. She clapped once to get everyone's attention. They moved to the tree in a chaotic drift. Wrapping paper rustled. Ribbons landed in random piles. Erin sat cross-legged on the rug back against the couch, her bag of gifts at her feet. The girls attacked the presents from their dad and grandmother first. Matching stuffed dogs emerged from one box, one brown, one white. They were immediately named Hazel and Maple, no discussion needed. A set of storybooks appeared from another full of children with hearing aids and busy hands signing across the pages. Erin's chest warmed at the sight. Then Mia grabbed the paper bag. From Erin, she announced. Lily gasped so dramatically she almost toppled off her knees. For real, she whispered. Careful, Erin said, amused. The wrapping is not very strong. They opened the gifts together. For each girl, Erin had chosen a small journal with a soft cover, one purple, one teal. On the front of each, raised in silver, was a drawing of a hand and a pencil. So, you can write your stories, she said, and draw them, and maybe write down new signs you learn. Mia ran her fingers over the cover. We have our own storybooks, she said. For Helen, Erin had found a deep blue scarf at a small shop near her apartment, soft and warm, with a pattern that looked like waves, or maybe sound lines. Helen touched the fabric, then looked up. Beautiful, she signed. Thank you. For Nate, she hesitated, then reached into the bag. It is not much, she said. I saw it, and thought of you. She handed him a thin, flat package. He peeled the paper away and held up a book. The cover showed a photograph of a suspension bridge in the fog, its towers fading into white. Bridges of the Pacific Northwest, he read. He smiled, the expression slow and genuine. I have wanted this for months, but I kept telling myself I did not need more pictures of bridges. You do, Mia said. You always do. Nate shook his head, still smiling. Thank you, he told Erin. His hands shaped the words in a way that landed deeper than simple gratitude. Erin's pulse skipped. The girls, it turned out, had something for her, too. This one, Mia said, digging in a pile near the back of the tree. It has your name. She held out a small box wrapped in silver paper edges, slightly wonky tape visible on 3 sides. Erin took it, suddenly unsure where to look. You did not have to, she began. We wanted to, Lily said firmly. Erin slid a finger under the taped edge and peeled the paper away. Inside, a little jewelry box waited. Her breath caught as she opened it. Nestled in white cotton lay a thin silver bracelet. 3 small charms hung from it. One was shaped like a hand, fingers curved in the sign for E. One was a snowflake. The third was a tiny book. For your name, Mia said, pointing, and because it is Christmas. And because you are a teacher. Erin traced each charm with her thumb. It is perfect, she said. Her voice came out softer than she meant. Now you are part of our Christmas, Lily added, simple and matter of fact. Erin felt that same pressure behind her eyes, the one that had haunted her at the restaurant, but it was different now, warmer. She stood holding out the bracelet. Help, she said. I am bad at clasps. Nate moved closer, kneeling in front of her, so they were level. His fingers brushed the inside of her wrist as he fastened the tiny hook. The contact was quick, practical, nothing more, but Erin felt it like a small spark. There, he said, secure. She looked down at the bracelet resting against her skin. The charms caught the light from the tree, winking softly. Thank you, she said again to all of them. Helen watched her for a moment, then set her own gift aside and rose. Excuse me, she signed, touching Erin's shoulder gently. I will be right back. Erin nodded, assuming she was headed to the kitchen. Instead, Helen stepped into the hall and returned a minute later with a box of old blankets and flattened cardboard. Fort time, she announced. The girls screamed with delight. They built the fort in the middle of the living room, draping blankets over dining chairs and the coffee table securing corners with heavy books. Nate crawled under to test the stability and declared it structurally questionable. Mia threw a pillow at him. Erin found herself inside the finished fort cross, legged on the carpet, the girls tucked against her sides. The space was lit by a single string of battery-powered lights Mia had dug out of a drawer, tiny bulbs glowing along the ceiling. Outside, the sounds of the house muffled. Inside, her world shrank to the warm press of small shoulders and the soft movement of hands. Mia insisted on telling a story. Once upon a time, she began signing the words with dramatic flair. There was a reindeer named Spark. He had a very shiny nose, but not as shiny as Rudolph, because Rudolph is famous and Spark is still in school. Lily took over halfway through introducing a grumpy snowman and a cookie that wanted to be a carrot. The plot twisted and tangled. Erin laughed until her sides hurt. At some point, they all ended up lying on their backs, feet toward the middle heads, pointing out like the spokes of a wheel. The lights above threw small shadows on their faces. Erin stared up at the fabric ceiling and let her muscles relax into the old carpet. She could feel the girls' breathing chests rising and falling against her arms. She could feel her own breaths, slowing to match. Later, when the sugar wave finally receded, Mia and Lily crumpled against her asleep. One had an arm flung across Erin's stomach. The other's hand still rested near her own fingers curled as if she had fallen asleep mid-sign. Nate peered inside the fort. "You good in there?" he asked quietly, shaping the words with his mouth and hands. Erin nodded. "They fell asleep," she whispered. He smiled. "That has not happened in the middle of the day in months," he said. "If I move them, they will wake up and protest." "Then do not move them," she replied. He settled onto the floor just outside the fort, leaning back against the couch legs, stretched out. From where she lay, Erin could see him only in pieces, his shoulder, his arm, the slope of his neck. "Thank you for being here," he said, signing the words slowly. Erin looked at the bracelet on her wrist, at the tiny hand charm, at the way it rested near the girl's fingers. "Thank you for inviting me," she answered, "for putting me on the schedule." They sat like that for a while, the room quiet around them. The tree lights blinked through the blanket tiny ghosts of color. When the girls finally woke, disoriented and indignant that time had passed without them, Noel shifted into afternoon. They played a board game with rules that changed every few minutes. They pretended Hazel and Maple were reindeer in need of a bridge to cross a river made of couch cushions. Erin found herself lying on her stomach helping them build that bridge out of cardboard and couch pillows, her hands as busy as theirs. By the time she left, the sky outside had dimmed to late afternoon gray. Her arms ached in a satisfying way. Her hair smelled like cinnamon and childhood. At the door, Lily clung to her again. "Will you come back?" she asked. "If your dad and grandma say it is all right," Erin replied. "Every day," Mia said instantly. "Not every day," Nate amended, though his smile took the sting out of the correction. He looked at Erin. "But often would be nice. We like having you here." Erin felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I would like that too," she said. When she walked back to her car, the street seemed less empty. Her phone buzzed once in her pocket with a holiday message from her sister, but she did not check it until she was sitting in the driver's seat. She looked at the bracelet again, then started the engine. In the weeks that followed, a pattern formed without anyone naming it. On Tuesdays and Thursdays after the last student left her classroom, and the quiet settled over the halls of Riverside, Erin would pack her bag a little faster. Some days she drove straight home. More and more often she found herself turning the wheel toward the neighborhood near St. John's Bridge. Sometimes she arrived to find the girls at the kitchen table hunched over homework scraps of paper and crayons everywhere. Sometimes Helen met her at the door with a dish towel over her shoulder and a story already half told. Sometimes Nate was in the backyard measuring something against the sagging fence pencil behind his ear. She slid into their evenings with surprising ease, helping with spelling lists and science projects, adding vegetables to plates, learning where the extra blankets were kept and which mug leaked when you poured too much tea into it. The girls began to sign her name into their stories, as if it had always been there. Erin's apartment stayed the same, small, neat, quiet. A single plant on the windowsill, a bookshelf, a couch, a lamp that flickered sometimes for no reason. Her life did not. Bit by bit, without ceremony, it stretched to make room. The email arrived on a Tuesday afternoon while Erin was erasing a board full of math problems. The classroom was almost empty. A few scraps of paper clung to the floor. Someone had left a drawing of a cat with sunglasses on her desk. The winter light outside stretched long rectangles across the tables. Her phone buzzed against a stack of spelling tests. She wiped chalk dust from her fingers and picked it up. New message. Subject line: interview invitation. Her stomach gave a small, unsteady lurch. Riverside Deaf Institute, Boston. She sank into her chair, the plastic creaking under her weight, and opened the email. Dear Ms. Cole, we are pleased to invite you to interview for a teaching position at our elementary campus. The words blurred for a second, then sharpened again. She read the email twice through, then a third time slower, catching phrases. Prestigious program. Strong bilingual bicultural model. Opportunities for curriculum development. Support for professional growth. Boston. She leaned back and stared at the ceiling phone resting on her chest. 3 years ago, before hospitals and funerals and empty apartments, this would have been the kind of thing she and Ben had stayed up late talking about. Another city, new schools, a chance to be part of something big. Her phone screen dimmed. She woke it again with her thumb. At the bottom of the email, a simple prompt waited. Please reply to confirm your interest. She locked the phone and set it face down. The cat with sunglasses stared up at her from the desk. She turned the page over, then turned it back again. There was a faculty meeting in half an hour. She had papers to grade, a bulletin board to fix. None of those facts made her heart beat any more slowly. Her hands moved on their own, clearing the desks, stacking books, checking the little bag of emergency snacks she kept in the corner cabinet. When everything looked the way it always did, at the end of a Tuesday she picked up her phone again. She did not reply. On Thursday she still had not replied. She told herself she was thinking, gathering information. Instead, she found herself lingering in doorways longer, watching her students as they filed out backpacks bumping against each other, hands flashing in the air, as they argued over recess games and lunch trades. At dismissal, one of her third graders tugged her sleeve. "You coming back after winter break, Ms. Cole?" he signed, frowning like this was a test she could fail. "Of course," she answered. The question landed in a place already unsettled. That evening, Erin drove to the Walker's house almost without conscious thought. The streets were slick with recent rain. The sky had gone from gray to charcoal. Helen opened the door before Erin could knock. Music videos played silently on the television behind her, the captions chasing each line across the bottom of the screen. "You are early," Helen signed. "Good. You can help me hide the good cookies from the children." Erin smiled and stepped inside. The girls were somewhere out of sight, their voices carrying from the hallway in bursts. Nate knelt in the living room, wrestling a new bookshelf into place. The old one leaned tiredly against the wall, shelves bowed. He glanced up, face brightening. "Hey," he said. Then he saw her expression. The brightness dimmed just a little. "Everything all right?" She forced her shoulders to relax. "Long day," she said. Lots of fractions." "Fractions are the enemy," he replied. "You are just bitter because you forgot how to subtract in front of Mia yesterday," Helen signed behind him. Nate winced. "It was a long day," he said. Erin let their teasing wash over her. She dropped her bag by the couch and followed Helen into the kitchen. The counters were cleaner than the last time she had been there. A pot simmered quietly on the stove. The smell of onions and tomato filled the air. Helen handed her a knife and a cutting board. "Carrots," she signed. "Sticks. We will tell the girls they are for seeing in the dark." Erin laughed, the sound thinner than usual. As she sliced, Helen watched her hands idle. "You are quieter tonight," Helen said. "You usually tell me at least 3 stories by now." Erin hesitated, blade resting mid-cut. "I got an email," she said. "Job thing." "Good thing or bad thing?" Helen asked. Erin shrugged. "Depends." She set the knife down and wiped her hands on a towel. "There is a school in Boston," she said, "for deaf students. Big program. They want to interview me." Helen's eyebrows rose. "That sounds significant," she said. "It is," Erin replied. She picked up the knife again, then set it down a second time. "I do not know if I want to go," she admitted. Helen leaned her hip against the counter. "Tell me what happens if you say yes," she signed. Erin let out a breath. "I interview, maybe get an offer," she said. "Move across the country. New students, new city, good work, good for my resume." She traced a circle on the cutting board with the tip of the knife. "Tell me what happens if you say no," Helen signed. Erin stared at the half-cut carrot. "I stay here," she said quietly, "with my kids, with my family." She paused, correcting herself. "With my families." Helen's mouth softened. "That sounds like you already know something," she said. "I know both are good," Erin replied. "It feels greedy to want both." Helen shook her head. "That is not greed," she answered. "That is being alive." For a moment, they worked in silence, the knife thudding gently against the board, steam fogging the window over the sink. "Do you want it?" Helen asked finally. "Boston." Erin thought of the email sitting unanswered, of the pictures on the Institute's website, smiling children in bright classrooms, rooms with more resources than Riverside could dream of. She thought of her own students' faces, of the way they lit up when something clicked. "I want pieces of it," she said. "The work, the challenge, the idea of being somewhere that important." She lifted her shoulders and let them fall. "I do not want to do it alone." Helen nodded slowly. "When I was your age," she signed, "I would have said yes before I finished reading. Now, I know that important work is not just in big buildings with polished floors. She tapped the cutting board. You can make a deaf child feel seen in any classroom, she said. That is important. Erin swallowed. I did not tell you this to make you tell me not to go, she said. I am not, Helen replied. I am saying, if you do go, it will be fine, because you will still be you. And if you stay, it will be fine, because you will still be you. She gave a small smile. Sometimes the question is not which one is right. It is which one feels like breathing, and which one feels like holding your breath. Before Erin could respond, Mia burst into the kitchen, sliding slightly on her socks. Dad is losing the bookshelf battle, she announced. Lily appeared behind her. It is, leaning, Lily said. He says it is supposed to do that. It is not supposed to do that. Helen huffed a laugh. Go, she told Erin. Rescue him. We will finish the carrots. Erin handed over the knife and wandered back to the living room. The bookshelf did technically stand against the wall. It also tilted in a way that made her nervous. Nate squinted at it level in hand. It is within acceptable limits, he said, mostly. Erin folded her arms. Is that an engineer term, she asked. He looked over, caught the glint in her eye, and relaxed. It is now, he replied. She stepped closer and put her fingers on the top shelf. It wobbled. This is not acceptable, she said. Not with book-throwing twins. Hey, Mia protested, we do not throw books. Just stuffed animals, Lily added. Nate sighed. I had help, he said. He pointed at the girls. They read the instructions upside down, Erin said. Mia gasped. The instructions have pictures, she argued. We cannot read upside-down pictures. Erin caught Nate's eye. Do you need a second pair of hands, she asked. Always, he replied. They worked side by side, adjusting, tightening, testing. Their shoulders brushed once when they both reached for the same shelf. Both drew back a fraction of a second too fast, then pretended not to notice. When the bookshelf stood straight at last, Mia and Lily applauded as if it were a performance. You did it, Mia said. We did it, Nate corrected. Your dad is still useful. For now, Lily said. Dinner was simple and loud. Pasta with sauce, the rescued carrots in a bowl that the girls eyed with suspicion. Erin watched them waiting. Remember, she signed, night vision? Lily squinted at a carrot stick. You promise, she said. Cross my heart, Erin replied. They ate grudgingly at first, then with more enthusiasm once the promise of dessert appeared. Later, as they cleared dishes, Erin found herself next to Nate at the sink. He rinsed plates. She loaded the dishwasher. You looked serious in the kitchen, he said, voice low enough that the girl's chatter covered it. Everything okay? She dried her hands on a towel. I got an email, she said. Job thing. His eyebrows rose. Good thing or bad thing, he asked. The same words Helen had used. She managed a small smile. That must be the official question, she said. He waited patient. There is a school in Boston, she said. Deaf Institute. Big program. They want to talk to me about a job. He stilled for a heartbeat. Water ran over his fingers, splashing into the sink. That is, he began, then caught himself. That is amazing. Is it? She asked. Her tone was light, but her eyes were not. Yes, he said. It is. You deserve people fighting over you, professionally. She looked down at the plate in her hands. I have not said yes to an interview yet, she admitted. I do not know if I want to. Of course you do, he said. His voice was steady. His hands, when he lifted them, were almost as calm. This is big. You have to at least explore it. She studied him. Do I? She asked. He met her gaze. If you do not, you might wonder, he said. Wondering is worse than a plane ride and a few meetings. You say that like you have experience, she replied. He shrugged one shoulder. I have turned down things I should have looked at, he admitted. Then I saw them on the news later and thought I could have done that better. She smiled in spite of herself. So this is about protecting Boston, she said. Partly he agreed. There was a pause. The girls banged silverware in the dining room, creating a rhythm of clinks and giggles. You know, Erin said slowly, I like it here. He flicked a drop of water off his hand. We like having you here, he answered. That is not a legally binding offer, she pointed out. He hesitated, then dried his hands and turned to face her fully. Here is the thing, he said, signing each word clearly. If you went, it would be hard. For us, for the girls, for my mom, for me. Her breath caught just a little. But he continued, if you stay because of us, and not because you actually wanted to stay, I would feel awful. Truly. Do not make a huge life decision, because some guy and his kids invaded your December. She studied his face, searching for any hint that he was just saying what sounded noble. You are very calm for someone who would lose his emergency vegetable negotiator, she said. His mouth quirked. I am not calm, he said. My stomach is doing weird things, but I am trying to be a grown-up. He picked up another plate. So, he added, you should email them back. Hear what they have to say. See the school. Then decide. If you go, we will be okay. If you stay, we will be happy. Either way, I want it to be your choice. She leaned her hip against the counter. You and your mom have been taking turns saying sensible things, she said. We share one brain cell, he replied. She laughed softly, then fell quiet again. I keep thinking about my kids, she said. My class. And you. And the girls. And Helen. All of this. Her hand moved in a small circle, taking in the house. And then I think, what if this is selfish? Saying no to something big. Maybe he said. Or maybe it is just knowing what fits. She looked at him. If I go to Boston, you know the girls will blame you, she said. He smiled. If you go to Boston, the girls will blame everyone, he answered. Then after a beat, he added, I will blame Boston. Her heart pulled in two directions at once. She imagined for a second what it would feel like to land in a city where no one knew her, to start new routines, new grocery stores, new routes to work, no one waiting by the door watching a clock writing her name on a schedule. The thought made her chest tight. She dried the last plate and slid it into the cabinet. The email can wait one more night, she said. Nate did not argue. Later, as Erin drove home across one of Nate's precious bridges, the water below slick and dark, she thought of Helen's hands spelling out breathing. She thought of Nate's steady eyes as he told her to go, even as something in his jaw said the opposite. Her phone buzzed once on the passenger seat. A message from Mia popped up on the screen. You forgot your cookie-cutter snowman, it read, with 3 exclamation points. We will keep him safe, Lily had added in a second text. He lives here now. Erin smiled, the expression small and private in the glow of the dashboard. Her life, she realized, had started to leave pieces of itself in that house. Cookie cutters, stories, the soft dent her body left on the couch cushion where she always sat. The email from Boston waited in her inbox, patient and polite. Her answer did not. Rain clicked softly against the walker's windows, turning the world outside into a blur of gray and reflected light. Erin sat at the kitchen table, a mug cupped in her hands. The girls had just finished a very dramatic retelling of a fairy tale involving a dragon with anxiety and a princess who refused to be rescued. Now they were sprawled on the living room rug, coloring the dragon into a rainbow. Helen dried the last dish and set it in the cabinet. Nate wants to show you something, she signed to Erin, her back to the doorway so the girls would not see. In his workshop. He has been fussing over it for days. Erin glanced toward the sliding glass door that led to the backyard. The sky beyond was nearly dark, the grass slick with rain. A small structure sat at the far corner of the yard, just visible through the glass. She had noticed it before, a squat shape with a single window always lit when Nate disappeared for an hour after the girls were asleep. His secret lair, Mia had called it once. Erin set her mug down. Now she asked. Helen nodded. Before he wears a trench into the floor. As if on cue, Nate appeared in the doorway, wiping his hands on a rag. He looked from his mother to Erin, then at the girls. Girls, he said both aloud and in sign. 10 minutes. No climbing the bookshelves. No feeding Hazel and maple spaghetti. We never, Lily began. Mia elbowed her. We will be good, she said. Probably. Nate shook his head, faint smile tugging at his mouth, then turned to Erin. Do you have a minute? He asked. I want to show you a project. Erin's pulse did a small unnecessary jump. Sure, she said. Her hands shaped the word automatically. I like your projects. He rolled his eyes at that, a little embarrassed, and gestured toward the back door. Grab a sweatshirt, Helen signed behind him. It is cold out there. Erin shrugged into a hoodie that hung on the back of a chair. It smelled faintly of laundry soap, and something warmer she could not name. She followed Nate outside. The drizzle brushed her face, cool and soft. The air smelled of wet earth and distant traffic. He unlocked the workshop door and pushed it open, stepping aside for her to enter first. The space was small but organized. A workbench ran along one wall, cluttered with pencils, screwdrivers, a tape measure curled like a sleeping snake. Shelves held boxes labeled in neat, efficient handwriting. Wood shavings dusted the floor in curls. In the middle of the room, on a sturdy table, stood the bridge. It was a scale model, maybe 3 feet long, 2 concrete abutments at either end, a graceful span between them. The deck arched slightly, supported by slim cables that fanned from each side. Underneath, tiny walking paths wound down to what would eventually be, in real life, a ravine. Erin stepped closer. She could see the care in it, the way each support met the deck at a precise angle, the tiny guardrails, the suggestion of trees and small green tufts along the edges. Wow, she said softly. It is beautiful. Nate let out a breath she had not realized he was holding. This is the pedestrian bridge for the park, he said. The one I told you about. Between the 2 halves that got cut apart when they built the highway. She nodded. She remembered. The girls had drawn pictures of it once stick figures running across a line that hung in midair. I started the design just after Hannah, he continued. Work helped. Numbers do not care how you feel. He rested his fingertips lightly on one end of the model. At first I just threw lines on paper, he said. Span supports loading calculations. Something to fill the space in my head so the rest would not echo. Aaron watched his hands the way his fingers tapped near one abutment. I realized a few months ago, he went on, that I had done something unintentional. He traced a line along one side of the model. I kept drawing this side, he said. The approach on the south. I had pages of it. Different railing options, different lighting. This side, he tapped the side where the bathrooms and parking lot are. The side people already know. He moved his hand to the opposite end. This side, he said, the north end. The part that connects to the wooded trail, to the lookout. He paused. I barely touched it. Aaron looked from one end to the other. You mean in the drawings, she said. He nodded. It was like my brain put up a fence halfway, he said. The work was supposed to be about connection, but I could not think past what people already had. For months I was stuck here. He tapped the familiar side again. Aaron felt something shift in her chest. Oh. When did you see it? She asked. He gave a small self-deprecating smile. When Mia asked me where the bridge went, he said, I told her from the playground to the woods. She said, cool, what is on the woods side? I could not answer. Not really. Not in a way that made her eyes go bright. He leaned on the table palms flat. It hit me that I had no idea what the other side looked like, he said, in my head, in my life. His throat moved as he swallowed. I have been standing on this one bank, he said. The one with the parking lot and snack bar. The place I knew with Hannah. He looked at her. The place where everything stopped. Aaron's fingers curled around the edge of the table. She pictured him after work, standing alone in this room, listening to numbers and trying not to listen to anything else. She recognized something of herself in that image sitting at her kitchen table, grading papers until her back ached, the television dark, the silence thick. He lifted his hand and traced the line of the span between the two abutments, the delicate arc. Then you showed up at our table that night, he said. Her breath hitched. I did not show up, she corrected softly. Your daughters kidnapped me. He smiled. Technicalities, he said. His face grew serious again. Somewhere between you eating cold fries with them and you teaching them that carrots are secret special ops for night vision, he said. I looked at this bridge and realized I wanted to finish the other side. He tapped the north bank where the path met the trees. For the first time since he did not finish, he did not have to. Aaron's heart beat hard against her ribs. He looked at her across the model. Aaron, he said, shaping her name carefully with his hands. I have been trying to figure out how much of this is just distraction. The way grief makes anything different feel like oxygen. He took a breath. But it is more than that. The words settled between them, quiet but solid. I like you, he said. His hands moved slower now, each sign deliberate. I like you as my friend, as the person who sits on my couch and rolls her eyes at my terrible jokes, as the one who can talk my kids into eating vegetables and reading another chapter. And I like you as something more. Her fingers tightened on the table. He kept going. I did not plan on ever liking someone like that again, he said. Certainly not this soon. He gave a small, shaky laugh. I thought my heart had signed a long-term lease on being numb. He lifted his chin a little, meeting her gaze. Somewhere in the last few months, he said it moved. Not all the way. Just enough that when good things happen, you are the person I want to tell. When something hard happens, you are the person I want in the room. Erin's eyes burned. Her hands left the edge of the table and hovered in the air, empty, not sure where to land. I am not asking you for anything. You are not ready to give, he said. If you want this to stay what it is, we can do that. I do not want to lose what we have, but I also do not want it to pretend nothing is changing when it is. He exhaled. I have feelings for you, he finished. Real ones. The workshop went very still. Erin could hear the rain on the roof. In the way the air shifted, feel the faint vibration of it through her boots on the floor. Her own hands started moving before her brain caught up. I am scared, she signed. The admission felt like stepping off a curb in the dark. Nate's shoulders dropped just a fraction. Me too, he said. His mouth quirked, terrified. She swallowed. After Ben, she said, I promised myself I would not try to replace him. People kept saying, you are young. You will find someone else, like he was a chair I could swap out. She shook her head. I hated that. Her fingers trembled as she signed. I have not gone on dates, she added. Not really. When I tried, people saw death before they saw me. Or they saw project, or checklist, or curiosity. She let out a breath that was almost a laugh. Jason was the first one in a long time I thought might be different, she said. We saw how that went. Nate's jaw tightened at the name. He was an idiot, he said. He is an idiot. She gave a tiny shrug. He just said out loud what a lot of people think, she replied. Her gaze dropped to the tiny bridge between them. When you talk like this, she said, part of me warms up, like my ribs are not so tight. Another part is afraid it is just loneliness. Yours, mine, the girls, that we are all just leaning on each other because we are tired. We are tired, Nate said. That part is true. She looked up. And Boston, she said. The word felt heavier than it should. If I say yes to that and yes to this, everything twists. If I say no to Boston because of this and it does not work, I lose a lot. He nodded slowly. I know, he said. I have been doing that math too. The corner of her mouth moved. Of course you have, she said. He leaned on his hands. So, he said, what if there is not a dramatic answer? What if we do what we have already been doing? One day at a time. No sudden moves, no promises we cannot understand yet. Just we admit what is here and see where it goes. He shook his head slightly. We do not have to label anything tonight, he added. We can still be friends who know there is more under the surface, and we can be careful with it. Her eyes searched his face, his hands the model bridge between them. What if it breaks? She asked quietly. The bridge, the us. What if I lose you and the girls and Helen? That feels like too much to risk. He held her gaze. What if it holds, he said. They stood like that, the question hanging in the room, with the smell of sawdust and rain. A faint scuffle sounded from the doorway. Both of them turned. Mia and Lily stood there, pressed shoulder to shoulder, hair mussed socks damp from the grass, where they had clearly tried to sneak quietly and failed. How long have you been there? Nate asked, equal parts father and man who had just been caught in something raw. Mia considered. Long enough, she said. Lily nodded. We came to see the bridge, she continued, then added, and also to see if you were going to be boyfriend and girlfriend. Grandma says it is about time. Nate closed his eyes briefly. Of course she does, he muttered. Aaron's shoulders shook. A laugh slipped out, tangled with a tear. Mia's gaze pinged between them. We think you should, she said, signing earnestly. You make Dad do his real smile, and you make the house quieter in the good way. Quieter in the good way, Aaron repeated. Lily stepped forward a little. We already like you, she said, so it would be okay. Aaron looked at them, then at Nate. He spread his hands. I did not put them up to this, he said. We put ourselves up to it, Mia said. We are very smart. Aaron wiped at her eyes with the back of her wrist. She turned back to the bridge and rested her fingers lightly on the north bank. I do not know anything about labels, she said, or timing, or what I'm supposed to do. I only know that when I am here, she glanced around the small room, then toward the blurred shape of the house. Beyond the window, I can breathe. Nate watched her hand on the model. Slow, she said. If we do this, it has to be slow. No pretending we are not scared. Slow, he agreed at once. No pretending. Lots of talking, lots of listening. He gave a tiny smile. We are good at that, at least. Aaron met his eyes. All right, she said. Her hands moved with more certainty this time. Let us see where this bridge goes. Mia squealed. Lily clapped both hands over her mouth, then dropped them to sign fast. Does this mean kissing, she asked. Not right now, Nate said firmly. He looked at Aaron, and something unspoken passed between them. A promise not of fireworks, but of showing up, of staying, of walking. He held out his hand across the model. She hesitated only a second, then put her hand in his. They kept their promise. Nothing changed overnight. No grand declarations over breakfast, no sudden rearranging of schedules. From the outside, it might have looked the same, Aaron showing up 2 evenings a week with her bag of grading and a knack for getting stains out of white shirts. Inside, things shifted by inches. The next week, Nate texted. Coffee sometime, he wrote. Just us. No dragons, no broccoli. Her heart did that strange nervous jump again. She stared at the screen for a full minute before replying. Coffee sounds good, she sent. I will even let you talk about bridges. She picked the place a small shop with big windows near the river that she knew had good light and patient baristas. They met on a Saturday afternoon. Aaron got there first, choosing a table near the window where she could see the door clearly. Her hands were colder than they should have been around her mug. Nate arrived wearing a sweater she had never seen before, and the same tired, honest eyes she had. He ordered tea, then sat across from her, and looked as unsure as she felt. It was easier than she feared. They talked about everything except the thing that had dragged them into the workshop. At first. They compared bad Christmas movies, argued over the best kind of soup, told stories about bosses who sent emails at 3 in the morning. At one point, Nate moved his chair a little so the light hit his face better for her to read his lips. He did it without making a big deal of it. She noticed anyway. "You keep looking at the door," he said halfway through his tea. "Habit," she replied, "and I am waiting for someone to text that they are not coming." He winced. "It is me," he said. "I am here." She smiled. "I see that." 2 tables over, a couple argued quietly over a laptop. The barista wiped the counter in slow circles. Outside, the river ran gray and still. "This is strange," she said finally, "to sit here like this, without Lily climbing into my lap, without Mia narrating my every move," he added. His mouth tugged into a crooked smile. "I like it though." "Me too," she admitted. Later, when they stood on the sidewalk saying goodbye, he did not try to kiss her. He just squeezed her hand once, a quick press of warmth, and stepped back. "Slow," he mouthed. "Slow," she agreed. Weeks moved around them. They shared the quiet parts and the noisy ones. Erin found herself saving stories throughout the day. Small moments with her students, things she read, jokes that would make the girls snort. They landed better when she told them on the walker's worn couch under the hum of the lamp that flickered sometimes. Sometimes after the girls were asleep and Helen had gone to her room, she and Nate sat in the living room in a soft hush. The television showed something neither of them was really watching, captions flickering along the bottom. Their knees would end up touching along the length of the couch, a point of contact that neither of them mentioned. One Friday night, the girls went to a friend's house for a sleepover. Helen declared herself off duty and disappeared with a stack of books and a cup of tea. It left the house oddly empty. Nate and Erin stood in the kitchen, 2 bowls and a pile of pasta between them. "It is very quiet," Nate said. "In the bad way?" Erin asked. He thought for a second. "In the strange way," he replied. They ate at the table, the clock ticking louder than usual. Afterward, Nate wandered into the workshop, and Erin followed. He had cleared space on the workbench, rolled out paper, sharpened pencils. The model bridge sat where it had before, steady and complete. He reached for a pencil, then paused. "I am not sure if this is a date," he said. She glanced around at the clamps and sawdust and shrugged. "I do not think dates have to look a certain way," she said. "We are here, together. That feels enough." He put the pencil down and turned to her. "Can I kiss you?" he asked. Her heart stuttered. She thought of Ben, of hospital rooms, of the heavy ring that still lived in the back of her drawer. She thought of Jason's text, of the cold, lonely table by the window. She thought of Mia's hand in hers, of Lily's sleepy voice calling her name down the hallway. She nodded. "Yes," she said. The first kiss was careful and almost shy. His hand cupped her cheek, thumb near her ear. Her hands found the front of his shirt. For a moment, everything else fell away, the worry, the what if, all the calculations. When they broke apart, both of them laughed, a little breathless and a little surprised. "That was not slow," she teased. "It took us months to get here," he replied. "I think we are still on schedule." She rested her forehead against his chest for a second, letting his heartbeat anchor her. Boston did not vanish from her mind. If anything, the thought of it grew sharper. The school followed up with a friendly email, then another. Eventually, Erin agreed to a video call. She sat at her small kitchen table with her laptop propped on 2 math textbooks, hair pulled back, notes spread out of frame. The people on the screen were kind and enthusiastic. They asked smart questions about language access and classroom culture. They talked about resources and support, about being part of a larger deaf community in the city. When the call ended, Erin felt something in her chest lift. She would have loved this, she thought, in another life. She closed the laptop and sat there for a long moment, fingers tapping against the cover. Her phone vibrated. "How did it go?" Nate wrote. She took a picture of the laptop closed on the table and sent it. "Good," she typed. "They are impressive." He replied with a thumbs up, and then a beat later. "You did great," he wrote. "I am proud of you for trying." She stared at the words. "Proud of you." Her eyes burned for no reason she could explain. It snowed once in late February. Real snow this time, thick, heavy flakes that clung to the ground for more than an hour. The city slowed, people stepping more carefully on the sidewalks. Erin walked across a bridge on her way to the walker's house, watching the white settle on the rails. The river below looked softer, blurred. Inside, Mia and Lily flung themselves at the windows. "It is sticking," Mia shouted. "It is sticking." "We have to show Erin," Lily said. Erin wiped her boots carefully and stepped into the chaos. Wet coats piled near the door. Helen shook her head and handed Erin a towel. "You live here now," she signed. "You can help mop the floor." "I will put it on my list of duties," Erin replied. Later that night, after snow angels and hot chocolate, after reading one more chapter of a book, the girls insisted she do with all the voices. She sat at the table with her laptop again. The email from Boston waited near the top of her inbox. "Thank you again for your time," it read. We would love to invite you for an on-site visit. Please let us know your availability. Her cursor hovered over the reply button. She could picture it so clearly. The flight, the campus, the bright halls and eager faces, her name on a new classroom door. She could also picture something else. Hazel and Maple abandoned on the couch. The girls at the window watching snow or rain or nothing in particular. Helen in the kitchen hand pausing over a dish as she checked the clock. Nate in the workshop standing alone in front of a finished model. The thought made her hands sweat. Her phone lit up with a new message before she could move. No pressure, it read, from Nate. Just thinking of you. Whatever you decide, we are on your side. She stared at the words. No pressure, she exhaled. Then she opened a new email to Boston. Thank you so much for the generous invitation, she typed. I am honored by your interest and impressed by your program. After careful thought, I have decided to remain in my current position and community at this time. Her fingers paused, then added, I hope we can stay connected professionally. She read it 3 times. It still felt true. Her heart was pounding, as if she had run up a flight of stairs. She hit send. The little whoosh of the email leaving her outbox felt like a line closing and another one opening. She sat back in her chair and let her shoulders sag. Her apartment was quiet. The plant on the windowsill leaned toward the glass. The lamp flickered once. Her phone vibrated again. How are you? Nate asked. She did not answer with words at first. She took a picture of the sent email, the first line visible, the rest blurred. You said no, he wrote. She swallowed. I said no, she replied. There was a pause. Can I call? He asked. She hesitated only a second, then typed yes. When his face appeared on her screen, he looked almost as nervous as he had in the workshop. You sure? He asked. Really sure. I do not want to be the reason you turn down something big. You are not, she said. Her hands moved in front of the camera, the screen filling with her fingers. I thought about it. A lot. I wanted parts of it. But when I imagined my life there, it was all work. Good work, yes. Important work. But when I imagined my life here, it was work, and... She looked at him. And you, she said. And the girls. And Helen. And cookies and forts and late-night bridge lectures. She smiled. My students. My parents a short drive away. She lifted one shoulder. I am not giving something up, she added. I am choosing what I already want. He let out a breath, the tension in his shoulders releasing in a visible wave. I am very glad, he said, for selfish reasons, but also because that sounded like breathing when you said it. She laughed softly. You and your mom, she said, same brain cell. He grinned. It is a very wise brain cell, he replied. They talked a little longer about small things. The girl's latest obsession with magic tricks, a broken shelf at work, the snow that had already started to melt. When the call ended, Erin sat in the quiet with the soft blue glow of the laptop on her hands. Outside, snow slid from the bridge rails into the river below, disappearing into dark water. Inside, her phone buzzed one more time. Tomorrow, Mia had written. Same time, we have a new game. Another message popped up from Lily. We told Snowman you are staying at Red. He is happy. Erin laughed, the sound echoing off her walls, and typed back. I am happy too. 18 months later, the kitchen looked like a flower storm had blown through and decided to stay. Erin stood at the counter, hands sunk into dough fingers, sticky and warm. The girls moved around her in fast circles. Mia measured sugar with wild generosity. Lily tried to catch each grain that spilled, then gave up and made a face. Hazel and Maple lay under the table waiting for stray crumbs. From the hallway came the sound of small feet pounding toward them. Caleb tumbled into the kitchen socks, sliding curls bouncing. He was 4 now, all elbows and questions. Mama, he signed, hands a little clumsy, but sure. Can I help? Help, Erin repeated, biting back a smile. Always. He climbed onto the stool beside her with a grunt. Erin wiped some of the flour off his cheek, leaving a streak that made him look like a very small baker who had seen some things. Nate leaned against the counter opposite them, watching. Your kitchen has seen battle, Erin said, glancing around. Bowls and spoons everywhere, streaks of dough on the cabinet doors, sprinkles scattered like confetti. He grinned. Great architecture always comes with a little chaos, he said. Helen passed behind him with a tray bumping his shoulder lightly. You are not allowed to compare my kitchen to your bridges, she signed. Different kinds of miracles. She set the tray down and checked the oven temperature. The air was already thick with vanilla and spice. The girls had invited half the neighborhood to their birthday party earlier that week. They had insisted on a second round of cookies tonight just for family. Family now meant this. The 5 of them, plus Helen, plus whatever friends happened to be orbiting close that day. The house had learned to stretch for more people. Erin wiped her hands on a towel and reached for another ball of dough. Nate disappeared for a moment and returned carrying something small behind his back. "What are you hiding?" Mia asked, narrowing her eyes. "Nothing," he said quickly, which was always a lie. Lily pointed. "Show," she demanded. He rolled his shoulders as if resigning himself, then walked to the center of the kitchen and dropped to one knee in the flour that dusted the floor. Erin froze a lump of dough in one hand. Caleb, perched on his stool, gasped and almost fell off. "You okay, buddy?" Nate asked without looking away from Erin. Caleb nodded so hard his curls bounced. "You are kneeling," he signed, eyes huge. "I am," Nate agreed. He wiped his palms on his jeans, leaving pale handprints, then lifted his hands, fingers a little unsteady. "Erin," he signed, shaping her name with care. "You walked into a restaurant alone and let two very pushy 5-year-olds drag you to our table." Mia and Lily giggled, watching from the other side of the island. "You taught them that carrots are secret night vision tools," he continued. "You taught all of us that our house could hold more laughter than we thought possible." His voice caught. He took a breath and kept going. "You held my mom's stories," he signed. "You held mine. You let me talk about Hannah without flinching, and you let me say your name in the same breath as hers." Erin felt heat rise behind her eyes. She set the dough down because her hands were shaking. "You walked me across the worst parts," he said, "not by fixing them, just by being there, by sitting on the couch when the girls were sick, by showing up with soup and bad jokes and grating to do." He took a small ring box from behind his back and opened it. The ring was simple silver, with a narrow band, a small stone that caught the kitchen light and sent it flickering. She realized she was holding her breath. "I love you," he signed, each word clear. That part came easily now, in both languages. He had said it for the first time on a Tuesday night, months earlier, on the couch, after the girls were asleep, when Caleb was finally quiet in his crib, and the house felt like it had exhaled. She had said it back with equal certainty. Now he added something else. "I love the life we have built," he said. "With them." He nodded toward the cluster of children watching, mouths open. "I love the mess and the noise, and the way you write your notes on sticky paper and leave them all over my truck." She laughed through the tightness in her chest. It came out a little wet. He reached for her hand, flower and all. "Will you marry me?" he asked, out loud and with his hands. Mia let out a gasp that turned into a squeal. Lily jumped in place. Caleb bounced so hard his stool wobbled. Erin looked at the ring and then at Nate's face. She saw the lines that had deepened since she met him, the new ones around his eyes from laughter, the old ones between his brows from years of worry. She saw Mia and Lily in his features. She saw the future in the way he waited open, not trying to rush her. Her hands moved. "Yes," she signed, without hesitation. She heard the breath leave him. He slid the ring onto her flour-coated finger. It stuck briefly against a smear of dough, and they both laughed, the sound breaking whatever remained of the tension. Mia and Lily threw their arms around them. Caleb squeezed in where he could, his head pressing against Erin's hip. From the doorway, Helen watched, one hand over her mouth, the other already lifting to sign. Finally, she said, "They married on Christmas Eve that year." The backyard was small, but it held more than enough. Snow had brushed the grass the night before, and lingered in the cold places tucked into the corners of flower beds and along the fence. Strings of white lights looped from one post to another, soft halos against the early dark. Chairs lined the narrow path from the back door to a simple arch Nate and Erin had built together, painted white, and wrapped in evergreen branches. On one side of the arch hung a small framed photo of Hannah, smiling into the camera, hair blowing in the wind on a bridge. On the other side, space waited for a new photo that did not exist yet. Guests bundled in coats and scarves, breath visible in front of their faces. Erin's parents sat in the front row, hands folded together, eyes already shining. Her sister held a camera with shaking fingers, determined to document every second. Inside the house, Helen stood with Erin near the back door. Erin wore a dress the color of soft cream, simple and warm, her hair pinned up with a few loose strands framing her face. Her ring glinted when she smoothed the fabric nervously. "You look like yourself," Helen signed. "That is the best a dress can do." Erin smiled. "You too," she replied. Helen had chosen a navy dress and a shawl her own mother had once worn. Her earrings, the tiny bells, chimed faintly when she moved, though Erin felt them more than heard them. "Ready?" Helen asked. Erin took a breath. "Yes," she said. Helen slipped her arm through Erin's and opened the door. Cold air kissed their cheeks. The murmurs of the gathered people shifted as faces turned toward them. Nate stood under the arch, Mia and Lily flanking him, in matching dresses with tiny cardigans, Caleb in a too big button-down and crooked tie. His hair refused to lie flat. Nate's eyes found Erin's the second she stepped onto the small path. Everything else blurred a little at the edges. They walked forward together, Erin leaning slightly into Helen's steady arm. At the front, Helen took Erin's hands in hers. "I am very glad my son is not an idiot," she signed. Erin laughed, then blinked away a tear. She turned to face Nate. The officiant spoke words Erin watched and read and half ignored her focus on the hands that moved alongside them. They had asked a friend from the deaf community to stand with the officiant and interpret, but often they did not need to watch. They knew the words already. "Do you?" the officiant asked. "I do," they answered, with their mouths and their hands at the same time signing yes and choosing in one gesture. They exchanged rings sliding metal over familiar skin. Fingers touched, lingered, then fell away to shape promises. Nate signed vows that he had written at the kitchen table late at night, ink smudged where his hand had rested. "I will keep building bridges with you," he said, "not to fix you, not to pull you away from anything, just to make sure we always have a way back to each other." Erin signed vows she had practiced in the mirror, in her small bathroom, the words settling into her bones. "I will not ask you to forget," she said, "Hannah or the years before me. I will bring my stories and sit them next to yours. I will laugh with you and cry with you and keep showing up when the days are heavy." Mia and Lily watched with wide eyes. Caleb tried very hard to be quiet and mostly succeeded. When the officiant finally said that they could kiss, Nate leaned in slowly, giving Erin just enough time to meet him halfway. The kiss was sure and familiar and still new somehow. The crowd clapped, hands lifted in silent applause, fingers shaking a shower of movement that felt louder than sound. 5 years later, the backyard arch had been taken down and rebuilt as part of a play structure. The lights had been replaced twice. The house had more scuffs on the walls and more frames on the shelves. On a bright December morning, the living room was full again. The twins were 11 now, taller and somehow louder, their signing faster, their jokes sharper. Caleb was 9, wedged between them on the rug, his hands flying as he argued about game rules. Helen sat in her usual armchair, a blanket over her knees, one of Caleb's school projects forgotten in her lap. Her hair was more silver, her eyes no less sharp. The tree in the corner was fuller this year. Ornaments crowded its branches. Near the top, where the lights burned, the brightest hung 2 pieces that always caught Erin's eye. One was an ornament shaped like 2 hands signing fingers curved toward each other. They had bought it at a small market the first Christmas after she moved in. Below it hung a flat clay circle painted in 3 different colors, little handprints pressed into it at odd angles. Across the front in wobbly letters were the words, "We picked each other." Caleb had written them tongue caught between his teeth, as he concentrated, Mia and Lily leaning over his shoulder. On the wall behind the couch, photos told their own story. Hannah's picture still held her place of honor, her smile constant. Next to her, a row of frames showed newer scenes. The wedding arch dusted with snow, the 5 of them on a hiking trail bundled in scarves, Helen and Caleb baking flour in both their hair, the whole family at the river bridge towers rising behind them. In one frame near the center, a photo had been enlarged. It showed a Christmas morning 5 years earlier. Erin sat on the couch, Mia and Lily pressed in on either side, Caleb small between them. Their hands were all mid-sign, blurred mouths open in some shared exclamation. Nate stood behind them, one hand on the back of the couch, eyes soft. Erin stood in front of the wall now, a roll of tape between her fingers. "You are staring," Nate said from the doorway. He carried a box of ornaments he had just fetched from the garage. She turned. "Remember this day?" she asked, nodding toward the photo. He followed her gaze. "First Christmas you spent here," he replied. "You were still pretending you did not live here yet." She smiled. "I was very convincing," she said. He set the box down and stepped closer. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "Just thinking," she said. For a moment, the restaurant flickered through her mind, the candle on the table by the window, the cold air on her face as she stepped outside alone. Jason's text, the phrase that had burned for so long. "The deaf thing is more than I am looking for right now." She could still see the words if she tried clean and neat on the screen. Now in this room, with the hum of her children's hands and the soft scrape of Helen's knitting needles, the sentence sat differently in her memory. More, she thought, more than he was ready for, more than he would ever know what to do with, more than he deserved. She did not feel anger, not anymore, just a distance, as if that version of herself lived on the other side of some old bridge she no longer had to cross. Caleb popped up in front of her, breaking the thread of thought. "Mama," he signed, holding out a lumpy wrapped package. "Your turn." He had flour on his sleeve from the morning's cinnamon rolls. His fingers were still a little sticky. Erin took the package carefully. "For me?" she asked. He nodded. Open, Mia chanted from the rug, clapping her hands. Aaron peeled the paper away. Inside was a clay ornament like the "We picked each other one, but smaller." 3 hands were imprinted on it again, a little larger now, the lines more defined. The paint was messy purple and green and red overlapping. In the center, someone had written one word in careful, deliberate letters. Home. Her throat tightened. Who wrote it, she asked. Me, Caleb said, proud. I practiced. She reached out and pulled him in, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. It is perfect, she said. Nate stepped in behind them and wrapped his arms around both of them, his chin resting lightly on Aaron's shoulder. Helen watched from her chair, a small, satisfied smile on her face. Aaron lifted the ornament gently. Where should it go, she asked. Top, Mia said at once. Near the hands, Lily added. Of course, Aaron replied. She walked to the tree, feeling Nate move with her, his hand still on her back. The lights reflected in the ornament's uneven glaze. She found a branch near the old clay circle and hung the new piece there, the 2 ornaments side by side. When she stepped back, the little cluster caught her eye. Hands and words, small and imperfect and exactly right. Behind her, the kids launched into an impromptu retelling of the Christmas story, this time from the point of view of the donkey. Their hands moved in wide, sweeping gestures. Their voices overlapped. Aaron turned to watch. Mia caught her gaze and signed, family, tapping her thumb against her chest, then drawing her fingers together. Aaron's hands rose almost on their own. She mirrored the sign, feeling the shape of it in her bones. This time, it did not feel like a word she was borrowing. It felt like the truest word she knew. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.